Okay, you're doing the review, right? And you talk about the guitar. And you say that guitar, it goes baby, 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 baby.
No, I'm not gonna do that.
You don't want to use that in a review?
No, that's not gonna go in a review.
But that's as good as anything that you do.
Hi everyone, live from the stream Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Cordae record from a bird's eye view. This is the sophomore full-length album of Maryland rapper Cordae. Fresh off dropping the YBN from his name, he is further cementing his solo path, which I think is for the best. With his debut a few years ago, The Lost Boy, he showcased a lot of smart introspective rhymes, as well as a sharp topical focus, proving the intergenerational knowledge he dropped in that J. Cole response that initially got him so much attention wasn't just a fluke. Still, there were some tracks on this record that felt a little derivative, or some ideas that came off as if they were still in incubation stages, but I was hoping past this record Cordae would only get bolder as he formulated his style and drifted away from the collective he started in. And while From a Bird's Eye View is a decent project, he still feels no closer on this one to hitting upon anything all that distinct. In some respects, this project feels like a regression, in others more like a victory lap, and I get it, with all the attention Cordae has been getting as of late, there's a lot of cause for celebration. He's doing late night spots, tracks with huge artists, commercials, and growing his fan base. So of course he'd want to share those wins with his fans. But I think prematurely popping the champagne bottles on this record unnecessarily comes at the expense of any skepticism of the ladder Cordae is climbing right now. Case in point, take the two first tracks off From a Bird's Eye View. The first one is a cold, freestyled a cappella verse from a friend of his currently locked up in prison, and following that we have the grand and emotionally urgent JEAN-MICHEL, whose punchy beats and grand piano chords are sort of a dead ringer for Kendrick Lamar's How Much a Dollar Cost. And no harm, no foul. I mean, it's a great track to pull from, and Cordae pretty much flips this sound into his own very convincing self-portrait, rapping about his fears, his motivations, contrasting his present with his past too. With this track, he's captured a T-Pab attitude and musical aesthetic, but the greater lessons about the music industry itself sort of seem to get left out as we move on to the song Super, which, yes, is a low-key banger, an absolute flex, but for an obvious overthinker such as Cordae, he seems a little too mystified by the flashing lights. I mean, texting Jack Dorsey is cool, and it's great that he got paid off that Super Bowl commercial, of course, like, you know, flex, get your money. I don't really buy into the binary that you either have to write something that says something significant or makes money, which is why I find this track and a few others a little confusing, as he states his ambitions to change the game, and yet he's dishing out tracks that feel not like much of a challenge to anything, just more par the course for what's kind of mainstream. Like, I admire Cordae's stated ambitions, and I hope his wildest dreams come true, but, you know, with the tone he's delivering them and the beats he's handing over and the songs that he's writing, it seems a little bit like a hollow promise. The first track on this thing that really left an impression on me had to be Mama's Hood, which is a low-key, smooth, nocturnal cut with a classic West Coast vibe to it. Like, if you could take an old Dre track but make it nocturnal and sort of depressing. Cordae drops a lot of introspective bars about being in his own head and working through all the changes he's been experiencing. I also love the way the chorus about his hometown comes full circle on the last verse, making mention of not going to a friend's funeral who was killed in a shooting, and that just being too much to bear, and instead he's just riding around his town in his Jeep. But the following cuts from here are less impressive. The track Want From Me kicks off with these dated but kind of diplomatic gender politics that feel like something someone 25 years older than Cordae would say. I mean, there are some kind of surface level observations on duality and cute mentions of stuff like Uncle Phil and Aunt Viv. There's a really men are from Mars, women are from Venus type of angle to it, and you would think someone like Cordae, who presents himself in the way that he does, would be thinking outside of this very narrow box. Next, Today with Gunna, I think, is an even worse track. Now, I know I have a reputation with Gunna fans out there, but he's actually not the issue I have with the cut. Cordae's flow seems a little off the tempo of this one, and I can't really blame him because I think the beat here is sort of awful. It doesn't have the smoothest groove, and the tempo makes the pacing of the whole thing really tedious. To Cordae's credit, he still comes up with a very unique flow over this instrumental, but it's it's still got to be the weakest song here. It's one of the least substantive and really too awkward to be a long-standing banger. From here we move into the last leg of the record, which I have to point out, the core track list and narrative and progression of this album is noticeably shorter than that of The Lost Boy. The only reason the runtimes of these projects are somewhat similar is because of the Roddy Ricch track and the Parables remix on the back end here. Of course, there's nothing wrong with adding extra tracks on the end of your record, but once more, the core series of tracks on this record, in comparison with The Lost Boy, just doesn't offer as much material, as much perspective, as much topical focus. C. Carter is, I think, another addition to the ongoing victory lap that this album is moving through. Mixed with some more lyrical nostalgia, it's sweet, it's easy on the ears, but really too breezy to truly stick. Then Sinister was one of the big singles teasing toward this LP, has Lil Wayne on the feature. I wasn't blown away by it at first, but hearing it in the context of the album, I do have to admit it is one of the best tracks here, even if the simple beat and very wordy chorus are sort of working against it. Chronicles is a nice change of pace that features Cordae singing, and I mean singing. I mean, the groove and the guitar lines and the R&B leanings of the track aren't exactly reinventing the wheel or anything, but the song is still proof of Cordae's versatility, which I hope he continues to explore into the future. The Her appearance is definitely like the standout feature on this one too. Topically, the song Champagne Glasses is a somewhat interesting change of pace because here Cordae does seem a little more disillusioned with the life that is in front of him, assuming that breaking into music would make things easier, smoother, more convenient, but now seeing that this lifestyle has its downsides as well, but he mostly seems to be taking the good with the bad. The Freddie Gibbs feature was the one I was maybe looking the most forward to, but like that constipated bar that kicks off the whole thing is sort of weak for him and not really worth repeating the amount of times that he does. I think the momentum of the song sort of trails off halfway into his verse 2, and then it kind of cools down into an extended outro with, of course, Stevie Wonder on harmonica. Westlake High may be sort of on the short end in terms of raw lyrical content, but it's still a somewhat strong closer. Feel-good vibe, irresistible beat, classic nostalgic soul chops, and Cordae's bars kind of sum up this record and his general attitude right now pretty clearly. He's trying to live in the moment, make what he can of this point in his career where he is like riding a high, a wave of success. From a bird's eye view is definitely an attempt at making a statement on Cordae's station right now, speaking on what he sees and what he's experiencing based on the peak, the height, the growth his career has allowed him to have. But despite the increased perspective, he seems to have less to say and less to offer than he did when he had, I guess, a more down-to-earth view of things on his last LP. And look, not to discount Cordae's obvious lyrical talent, because that's definitely still there and shows in pockets of this project, but he just doesn't seem to be as willing to dig into that here, as I think he's more enamored with the boom of popularity he's seen in such a short amount of time, and this project again seems more like just a reaction to that than anything. Maybe once the novelty of that wears off, he'll have a little more to say. I'm feeling a light to decent 6 on this one. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video that you could check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Cordae, forever.